Yes, good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra, the Tuesday edition with me, Fred Indimuli. Now, we are on day 9 of the NASA strike, with sections of the media now reporting that the industrial action has so far resulted in a surge in HIV infections, especially through mother-to-child transmission. The Council of Governors is today expected to meet to deliberate on the current crisis. Meanwhile, nurses are adamant that they will not entertain any suggestion to renegotiate a draft collective bargaining agreement before it is signed. Are we staring at another prolonged health crisis like we saw with the doctor strike? Meanwhile, 55 days to the elections and with campaigns already in top gear, it has emerged that public money is being used to fund campaigns. A report by KNCHR, as seen by Citizen TV, says senior government officers, both at the national and county level, are blatantly using public resources, including money, buildings, vehicles, and officers. Will we ever be able to protect public coffers from the dirty hands of politicians? Why can these very influential public figures seek to raise their campaign monies through other means, like crowdfunding, for example, which seems to be working well for other new age politicians? Does political fundraising have to be a dirty job? What about the campaign agenda for 2017? What are the main issues emerging from these campaigns? Is there a deliberate attempt to revive the ICC debate as a campaign agenda? Who stands to benefit the most by reigniting the ICC debate? Could revisiting this discussion have a negative effect on the elections? Now, these are just some of the questions that we'll be seeking to answer on this edition of Citizen Extra. Elsewhere, hearing of an appeal filed by Wavinya Ndeti against IEBC's nullification of a candidature for Machakos governor kicks off this morning at the High Court in Nairobi. We'll be heading there live in a short while. Also happening today is the official launch of the 3-day National Elections Conference convened by the IEBC, which kicked off yesterday at the KICC. Both President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga have been invited to the event. Will they attend? We will have our reporter Stephen Leto is on standby there, and we'll be joining him in a short while as well. You can see live pictures there as well from Kware in Pipeline in Embakasi here in Nairobi, where a building collapsed last night. We do have an update for that. We'll be giving you that in a short while. And as far as the NASA strike is concerned, we'll get an update from Laura Otieno, our reporter in Kisumu, regarding what is happening there. Also on standby is John Wanyama, our reporter from Eldoret. We do understand that the National Cereals and Produce Board has started releasing maize to individuals from their silos. We'll be getting an update from John in a short while. First off, let's start with last night's pictures from the building collapse in Kware Pipeline, Nairobi. We do understand that 15 people have been reported missing after an 8-story building collapsed at Kware Pipeline, Nairobi. These are pictures from last night. According to the St. John's ambulance, teams from the military, the Nairobi Fire Brigade, responded to the incident, which happened at 10 p.m. However, rescue operations were hampered by lack of heavy excavation machines expected to arrive this morning. 3 days earlier, the building had shown imminent signs of collapse, including cracks and bending of walls, and most tenants had vacated. As of yesterday, the structure started to cave in at about 6 p.m. and finally came down at about 10 p.m. The top floor collapsed on the adjacent building. The cause of the collapse has not been established yet, but it is likely to be poor workmanship and use of substandard material.
Ndiposa uwezi kosa wenye walikatalia pale, na kuna watu wako huko, si ati hakuna watu wenye walikataa, wenye walikuwa na diet, kwani sisi ni Mungu.
7 floor, 6 floor na 4th floor. Kuna nyumba zilikuwa sina taa. Ndani kumaanisha kuna watu wako ndani. So kuna watu walikuwa nasema hawezi kutoka kwa nyumba na wamelipa rent.
About 8 people have not been evacuated, and we are afraid that they might be buried in the rubble.
Wengine wanaweza kuwa wako hai, wengine ambao wamekuwa wametuacha.
Orofa zote 8 zimeanguka na zimelala chini, ni kama zikatoshana nao kama orofa moja, ni kama ground floor peke yake. Kwa hivyo hakuna mtu ambaye ni machinery ambayo inahitajika hapa, hivi ni KDF peke yake.
Wakati watu wanaishi nyumba, lazima waangalie kuna shida ama hakuna shida. Usijilazimishe kwa ngorofa na kuna shida. Hata wakati nyumba inafanywa building, watu wanafaa kupatia nyumba duration ya kukaa kwa mwezi moja ama mwezi moja na nusu ndio uweze kuongeza floor nyingine juu.
Those are the pictures from last night when the building collapsed, and rescue efforts are currently underway. We have now live pictures from what exactly is happening at Quarry Pipeline here in Nairobi. We understand KDF is leading the rescue and recovery operations at that site, and we'll continue bringing you updates from that part of the city. Those are live pictures there from Quarry Pipeline in Embakasi here in Nairobi, where 15 people have been reported missing after an 8-story building collapsed last night in that area. KDF is leading the rescue and recovery operations, of course assisted by other organizations including St. John's Ambulance and the Nairobi Fire Brigade. We'll be bringing you more updates from that area. At this point, I'd like to introduce the guests I have in studio today. Of course, we'll be discussing the main issue, which is to do with the nurses' strike. We are privileged to have Joseph Ngwasi, Chair of the Kenya National Union of Nurses, with us in studio. Benson Ambuni, also from the Kenya National Union of Nurses, is the Chief Industrial Relations Officer. And we have John Kagushia, an analyst, who will be discussing that particular issue to do with the nurses' strike in a short while. But first, let's go to the KICC first, where the National Elections Conference is being launched today. It's a 3-day conference that kicked off yesterday. Our reporter Stephen Leto has been following the happenings there and joins us for a live update. A very good morning to you, Stephen. We do understand that both President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga have been invited to this official launch today. Any indication that they could be attending?
Well, a very good morning to you, Freddie, there in studio. Like you've put it, the President and the NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga and the Jubilee Party candidate for the presidency, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, have been invited as guests in this particular forum that kicks off kicks off today for 3 days. But now there are no any indications that President Uhuru Kenyatta will be attending this forum, and so there is no any other indication indicating that NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga will be attending this forum. Apparently, in the program, they were supposed to speak after the chairman for the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Wafula Chebukati, speaks. He was to invite the former Prime Minister, who is the NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga, to make his address, then invite President Uhuru Kenyatta, who will then invite Faki Mahamat, who is the chairman of the African Union Commission, who is the guest for this particular function. But as it were now, there are no indications that the two are going to attend this particular forum. But nonetheless, it is going on. Several stakeholders have already arrived. We've seen officials from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the chairman for the Integrity Center, that is the EACC, His Grace Archbishop Eliud Wabukala is one of the guests who are supposed to address this conference this morning. And so we have also seen the CEO of the EACC, that is Alake Wako, coming also. He has also arrived alongside his deputy and several other commissioners for the EACC. That, of course, the commissioners and the chairman, the CEO of the IEBC are all here. We've seen, interestingly, the former vice president of the Republic of Kenya, Uncle Moody Awori, has also come here. He has been invited to attend this forum. Basically, this forum, this session this morning, Freddie, is about how the top leadership is committed in ensuring that there will be a credible and peaceful general elections on the 8th of August. That is why this morning they had been given an opportunity to come and address the IEBC, address the stakeholders of the election, as well as make a presentation and make a commitment to their electorate on how they are committed in ensuring that they are going to stand for a free, fair, credible, and most importantly, a peaceful election. Of course, this election also coming at a time when there is a lot happening in the commission. Some of the key things, some of the major stakeholders that have been invited here is the Office of the Inspector General of Police, as well as the Office of the Interior Ministry. That, of course, they have been slotted for tomorrow, because what the IEBC is saying is they want a clear partnership, a very close partnership with the security agencies that will ensure there will be a peaceful time, peaceful campaigns, peaceful post and pre and post election security, as it were, in the next general election, that is 8th of August. And so the IG Joseph Boynet is expected to make his presentation alongside several other state agents.
We do apologize for that lack of sound in that report, that live report by Stephen Leto. Of course, we'll be getting back to Stephen, who's going to keep on giving us updates with regard to the National Elections Conference convened by the IEBC, currently going on at the KICC. The official launches today. Of course, the conference kicked off yesterday. Let's move on now to Eldoret, where we do understand the National Cereals and Produce Board has begun an exercise of releasing maize to individuals. And John Wanyama, our reporter from there, is standing by with a live update. A very good morning to you, John. What exactly is happening? Why is the NCPB releasing maize to individuals now and not millers?
Good morning, Indimuli. I'm live from NCPB Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, and the NCPB is releasing maize to both millers and individuals. And I think because they have people have been complaining that maize outside there, they are selling at a very high price, especially in Eldoret town. You will find that a 90 kg is going for 5,400 shillings. But here in NCPB, the government has reduced the price to 2,300, and you see this is becoming very cheap and affordable to people from this region, and people are coming in large numbers to ensure that they get what they want from this NCPB. In the Muli, one thing that is very interesting here is that the NCPB has also come up with some conditions that have really started to piss off people who are coming here to take this maize. The NCPB is saying that someone who is coming here to buy this maize, you are only allowed to buy one bag of maize, and that is a 50 kg bag, and you also have to confirm that you have a family so that you can be given this maize. If you can't confirm that you don't have a family, then the management here is not going to release maize to you, no matter how much you come with or how you are looking like. They have also put another condition that before you given this maize, you need to come with a letter from assistant chief or your chief, who can also confirm to the management here that really this individual who has come here to pick maize is a family man of how many kids, he has a wife, and this is because the management is saying if they keep giving people maize to people, they don't know whether they are single, and if you are single, what are you going to do with a whole 90 kgs maize? How are you going to eat the whole of it? So they are saying they are really targeting people with the families so that they can go and feed their people. We are really seeing trucks outside here who are still loading for millers, and remember this week around 8 milling companies, they had closed down due to lack and shortage of maize here. But as you see behind me, people are really loading lorries from this end, and maybe in a short while people will start receiving the maize flour wherever they are in the Muli.
Oh, thank you, John Wanyama. There are interesting happenings there in Eldoret at the NCPB silos, where the National Cereals and Produce Board has started releasing maize to both millers and individuals. But as John Wanyama says, if you cannot prove that you have a family, then you will not get the maize. So you need a letter from your assistant chief saying that you do have a family that you intend to feed with that maize. Very interesting. Of course, we'll be getting more updates from there. Let's now head out to Kisumu for an update on the nurses' strike. Of course, today is day 9 of that nationwide strike. Our reporter Laura Otieno is there. Laura, what exactly is happening in Kisumu with regard to this strike?
Thank you very much, Fred and Demoli. And here in Kisumu County, the situation is similar to all other hospitals nationwide. As we have been seeing, the wards are empty, patients were discharged, and especially in the labor ward where the situation was actually more dire, they were not admitting expectant women, so there were literally empty beds in the labor wards at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital and also the Kisumu County Hospital. And as of yesterday, the female ward at the Kisumu County Hospital had wooden planks barricading the door, meaning there was no admission whatsoever. The wards were also clearly empty. Relatives had come to move their sick from there to other facilities. And earlier on, as of last week, Fred, they were not even giving immunization to children in public hospitals. Mothers were being shunned, being asked to seek immunization services for their children in private facilities. And of course, all this is in line with the nurses' strike. We expect to see the talk today by Kotu to see if the talks will actually break the stalemate that's ongoing, because patients here are really suffering. And earlier on, speaking to the Kenya National Union of Nurses Kisumu branch chairlady, Dr. Flora Ambani, she told us that today they will not be on the streets. They will be sitting tight at home waiting to see the fruit that the talks with Kotu will bear today. Back to you, Fred.
Thank you, Laura Otieno there from Kisumu, giving us an update with regard to the situation as far as the nurses' strike is concerned. And that discussion is what I want us to start here to continue with in studio with my guests, Joseph Ngwasi, that's the chair of the Kenya National Union of Nurses, Benson Ambuni, also from the Union of Nurses. He is the Chief Industrial Relations Officer, and analyst John Kagushia. Let's start with you. Good morning, gentlemen, first, and let's start with you, Ngwasi.
Good morning.
We understand that a number of talks, Laura Otieno there mentioned talks with Kotu. We also do understand that the Council of Governors is also going to engage in some talks today with regard to these nurses. Are we anywhere near getting a solution to this crisis?
Okay, thank you, Jimuli. From the time this strike started, we have not engaged well with the government, because the government has not organized a single meeting to address this crisis. And yes, the nurses are ready for solution to be gotten for the, as far as this matter is concerned. Nurses expressed goodwill in remaining patient to come up with this document that we want to be signed before the nurses go back on duty. This can be done in a day, and the nurses are back on duty as early as even this afternoon. Yes.
Your stand has been very clear with regard to the signing of this draft CBA, but Bwana Benson Ambuni, when you approach any negotiations as an industrial relations officer, you need to also cede some ground. How come the nurses are so adamant that it is either that CBA is signed as it is, or the CBA is signed as it is?
Thank you, Fred. I think CBA issue is a structured arrangement. CBAs are known to be documents that are regulated by law in terms of how they are negotiated, the people who negotiate them, and then the end results of the CBA are structured. So it is not something that somebody wakes up, makes up an opinion, and then goes to say to the media what is supposed to be done or what is not supposed to be done. Nurses came to where they are today because in December everybody remembers that there was a nurses strike which brought a lot of sufferings, but thank God within a very short time interested parties, the stakeholders came and collected or brought people together. A solution, albeit a temporary one, was found, because that time the government on its own volition offered to give nurses a nursing service allowance as a stopgap to allow for the exhaustive CBA negotiations, which would have led down a realization of a CBA. Perhaps people don't understand that this CBA would have brought an end to several strikes that we see every now and then, because the moment you have a CBA, then every terms and the condition of service are outlined on how they are going to be administered. So when this CBA came into force, it was upon the government, who is now on the other side, to put structures in place to ensure that the people who are going to negotiate with the nurses were the right people, to ensure that the time frame that were being agreed on were respected, because we also don't look at it in good faith, as a sign of good faith, that a government sits together, assembles people to avert a strike, only to come then at the end of it to start throwing blames to the other person, or you are not the right person, or you needed to have done this. These are things that now are annoying nurses, but we are not saying that CBAs must be signed the way they are. You call these people to the table, talk to them the way you call them to the table. You agree in that boardroom, because now you'll be the employer and the nurse now talking again. But you cannot be condemning them, saying they have maintained a stand, they have maintained this, you have not called them.
Bwana Ambuni, surely you could have noted by then that the lack of inclusion of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission would pose a potential problem going forward, that SRC should be right at the center of any such negotiation. So therefore, if at all there was no representative from SRC as you negotiated this draft, then definitely that would pose problems in future.
Perhaps, Bwana Ndimuli, maybe to correct you, the unions don't engage SRCs directly. The SRC, as it is structured, only has a mandate to advise or talk to the employers. And the employer, in this case, are the people we were negotiating with, which was the County Public Service Board Forum, and which was representing the 47 county governments. Then after the conclusion, and even during the conclusion, we are aware, we came to learn later, that the SRC advised and they gave parameters within which these employers were to engage the union. But being as it may, the union had several allowances, up to about over 10 allowances, in fact 17, which they were demanding. But being a give and take exercise, the employers agreed with us to drop some of the allowances. Then we zeroed in on the few 5, which now the employers had to concede within the perimeters they were advised. So nobody can now come and tell the union that now the SRC is not supposed to be involved with the union anyway in negotiation. The SRC is only supposed to tell the employer, this is what we want. So if the employers were guided by the resources they have in the counties on how to pay their nurses, because the Constitution of Kenya also, Bwana Ndimuli, tells us that The employer and the employees have a right to collective bargaining. That is a law that was done by Kenyans. It was approved by Kenyans.
Yes, that is true. That is true. But let me bring in Bwana Kagusha now. John, how do you see this panning out? Because the SRC has a big role to play in this. If at all they were not involved from the word go, and now they say there's a problem there, then even the complaints by the nurses are not really heading anywhere.
Thank you, Fred. And to start with, when we had the first strike, which was a combined effort from the doctors and the nurses, you remember there was a lot of goodwill that came from the nurses union because they accepted to agree to the issues that the government raised, and of course we saw them going back to work. And I would want to congratulate them for that, because then that averted also another major crisis like we suffered under the hands of the doctors union. And as you can remember, that time we did not seem to get a lot of goodwill from both sides on the negotiating side. Now this time round, what happened is that this CBA, which has been under negotiation, was supposed to be signed by 2nd of June, as has been alluded here. And what I have seen happening is that at the expiry of the date that this CBA was supposed to be signed, the nurses have proceeded on strike. And I think that from a governance perspective should not have happened. What needed to have happened is at that time we should have a renegotiation of the time frame or the timeline that had been put forward for the signing of this CBA, because as it were, there are still some things that they still need to thrash out in this CBA that have not been agreed. So proceeding on strike and demanding that this CBA is signed as it is doesn't show a very good gesture from the nurses, especially because of the danger also that it portends to the Kenyans who are suffering under the hands of in this strike now. So what I think needed to be done is to have given time to renegotiate this timeline and agree. Do we take a few more days to agree? Having said that, we have the issue of SRC. Yeah, my friend here is right to have said that SRC is not the one to negotiate for the CBA.
But they should be included in a roundtable negotiation.
Indeed,
they're advising.
Indeed, because they need to have an advisory role. Yeah, and that has been missing. And as you can see now, SRC is saying you are proceeding with this CBA, but you have also ignored our advice as SRC. But then SRC also, they live in this country, and I think to a great extent also they are letting us down, because if we were to evaluate the time that SRC has been in office, and you know it's an independent commission, we would also want now to ask, what has been the input of SRC, and how has SRC also helped this country to avert some of these labor relations issues and industrial issues? Okay. So you find there we have an issue, but again, what we need to see is this strike doesn't need to go beyond the 10th day. We need to have these bodies coming together and agreeing on how they are going to handle this issue. And again, Fred, one of the problems you're also facing here, by the way, is that one of the bodies that is at the center of these negotiations, what has been referred to be the County Service Board, the County Public Service Board. This is not a legislated body. It is not a body that exists in law. It is an agreement between the county government, the COG, that we are going to have these different public service boards in every county. Then they come together and they make a forum, which then helps to create the CBA committee, and then they negotiate using that umbrella. I dare say we are trying to nationalize the issue of health when in fact it was devolved. Okay. And I think then it's high time we brought back this issue back to the national government and remove it from the county government. Wow,
that's a radical suggestion. But even as we continue that discussion, you can see live pictures there on the split screen at the top corner there. Those are live pictures from Quarry Pipeline, Nairobi, where the rescue and the recovery mission continues following a building collapse last night where 15 people have been reported missing, and I think security agencies there trying to contain crowds and possible looters who are seeking to gain from that tragedy. We saw some running battles there between security officers and some of the residents. We do understand that some of them were actually looting from that building which collapsed.
jamaa kitaka vizuri. Hawa jamaa kitaka vizuri. Bora na hawa mapigano. Waweke kamba pale. Waweke baadhi nao hivyo. Waweke tu baka boni. Waweke baba hapo yao. Lakini unajua hiyo ndio raha yao. Wanaonekana sasa wanafanya. Lakini watu haino kuanzia saa 8 mchana hivi chuma watakuwa wamebeba.
Yes, live pictures there from the ongoing rescue and recovery mission at Quarry and Pipeline, where a building collapsed last night. 15 people are still reported missing, according to the very latest update from St. John's Ambulance. The KDF, of course, is leading that rescue and recovery mission. We've seen there that security officers are having a difficult time trying to contain possible looters who are seeking to gain from that tragedy. Back in studio, we continue our discussion with regard to the nurses' strike. A very radical, what could I say, a very radical suggestion there by our analyst John Kagusha that probably we should remove the health sector from the county level and as a function of the county and bring it back to national government. I know this is one of the things that medics and nurses had looked forward to, or rather try to agitate earlier on in the year, but fine, we're beyond that right now. Back to you, Bwana Joseph Ngwasi. According to what you're seeing today, there are quite a number of talks. What are you hoping for today?
Okay, before I go to that, I would like to clarify that the nurses leadership has been very patient, because the date of signing the CBA on 2nd was a postponement from 11th. A COG is on record to have written to the CECs and the chief officers to come to sign a CBA, a concluded CBA on 11th. And that was never be, because we convened our officials from all over the country to come to sign a collective bargaining agreement. And because nurses are very patient, we agreed again to postpone that date from 11th of May to 2nd, only to come to realize that we were being taken for a ride. So coming on whether the nurses are ready for negotiations, I would like to tell the Kenyans that nurses are very much ready to negotiate and conclude. That is a sign.
Are you saying you're ready
collective bargaining agreement as agreed by the government?
Are you saying you're ready to renegotiate the draft collective bargaining agreement?
Our position is we are not ready to renegotiate this document, because
so when you say you're ready to renegotiate, what do you mean?
We are ready to sign the CBA, not to negotiate on the content of the CBA. Maybe we negotiate on the signing date. If it is tomorrow, we are ready, we will be there for the signing. Because this document, SRC is on record to have said that they were in constant communication with the people we were negotiating with. Therefore, if the government was adequately advised by the SRC and given parameters as we were negotiating, then how comes that when we come to the signing of the CBA, this is the time that the government realizes that they cannot be in a position to implement this CBA, yet they were in constant communication with the SRC, who are mandated in law to give advice to them.
Yes. Benson Ambuni, if at all the county service boards or county governments go against advisory by the SRC, it means they will not be able to fund this particular increment that you seek. Do you think, therefore, that your strike and saying that SRC has no place in that negotiation holds any water?
No, we do not say that, Fred. What I want to say is that we must also appreciate that we have two levels of government that have been negotiating with the nurses. We have the national government, which was represented by a very senior official from the Ministry of Health, and we have representative of the County Public Service Board, which constituted themselves under the banner of the County Public Service Board Forum. And I would wish to differ fairly with my brother here to say that they are not, the county government boards are not a legislated body. The sections 59, 57, 55, 57 up to 59 are of the County Government Act 2012, provides for the creation of the county governments, the functions up to now the recommendations of terms and conditions of service of county employees to the SRC. So where we are up to now, Banandimuli, nobody between we have not had any comment from the county government's public service board representative who are negotiating with the nurses, saying what nurses are saying are a lie. Nobody has listened to them, and it was an opportunity for them to be given to go to SRC and tell SRC that when you guided us in these parameters, we went and sat down, and this is why we seeded ground further beyond what you advised us. Nobody has given these boards an opportunity to go and tell SRC. What now we are seeing come in play, and what we really feel as offensive to nurses, is the COG, which in the Constitution under the Intergovernmental Act, they are only supposed to provide a platform for the operations of the county governments to proceed. And they provided facilities for us to continue meeting. From down in Mombasa, they were represented. Up to Nairobi, we were meeting at the Council of Governors every time. So COG now comes and takes the center stage of people now giving misleading information, even to His Excellency, the chair of the Council of Governors, who is new in the office. That is how nurses take offense. We want to see SRC now sit down with the county public service board and ask, why did you go beyond this? This is not even a business of nurses.
Yes.
We want to see these people tell the SRC why we agreed on this, and even also tell the SRC that even before we agreed on this, these people are demanding this. We also have to remember that in 2014, the Ministry of Health, during a national, when they were still one main employer of nurses, they agreed on a CBA with the Nurses Union. This CBA has not been, it was not rejected because it was bad. It was rejected because by the time it was supposed to be signed, an advisory came from the Attorney General's office, which said if it was signed in its form, it would have been construed to mean the benefit were only going to be enjoyed by the nurses in the national government. So it was
what is happening right now, something similar to that, that just before the CBA, the draft CBA is signed, an advisory comes from one arm of government or from a department of government. During that time, it was the AG, now it's coming from SRC, saying that if it is signed this way, it will be an illegality. Don't you think it is the same situation?
Fred, I want also you to get one thing that I think should also guide us. There is a letter that SRC wrote to the Council of Governors and wrote to Awan Bwanatanui on the 2nd of June. They were on 5th of June this year. The SRC was asking that there is a letter we sent to you on 27th of March 2017 regarding the CBA negotiation. You have not responded to us. And they were only asking how they would avail funds to service the CBA of nurses. That letter up to 5th of June, it had not been responded to. Nobody is talking about this. We are only saying SRC has rejected. But Ann Gitau was here, and she said, if these people are going to provide information to facilitate, to tell us how they would fund this CBA, we are ready to agree with the nurses even tomorrow. She was here in the studio.
Okay, let's now talk about the way forward as we wrap up this discussion. Let's start with you, Bwana John Kagwisha. What should we do going forward? We do not want to see another 100-day strike like we saw with the doctors earlier this year.
Yeah, Fred, let me first clarify the issue that Benson has raised about the county public service boards. It is important to differentiate the difference between the county public service boards and the county public service board forum. You know, there's a forum at the national level, and that's what I'm talking about. Because the expectation would be, we have a county, we have a public service board at the county level, we have nurses who are employees of the county government, and we have a union representing nurses at the county level. But you see, they're not negotiating at that level. They are now using this as a platform now of the forum of different county service boards coming together to make a forum, and that's the forum that I'm saying is not legislated in law. And that's why I'm saying there are still issues in regard to that. But then that is not the main issue here, because I don't think really is the issue of contention. The problem that we find ourselves in is that we have tried to nationalize that issue, because I know for the union, they would want it to be handled at the national level, because then they have more bargaining power. But again, in real sense, and constitutionally and in law, we should do it at the county level. But now,
so individual counties should negotiate with their own.
That should be the ideal situation, according
according to the law, according to the devolved system. But then I would want you to differentiate the CBA or the disagreements we have between the nurses and what we had with the doctors. You know, what we had with the doctors was a stalemate, a serious stalemate between a CBA that was not a CBA in the first place, and that the government has said they cannot sign, and the union was saying it must be signed. In this case, we are not talking of a CBA that is not recognized. We are talking of a CBA that has been under negotiation. We are talking of a CBA that is appreciated by both sides, by the COG, by the government, and by the union. So, and as he says, I have not had so much of nitty-gritties of disagreements on particular issues which they have raised and said we are not agreeing on this. So it is a fairly simple issue. I think we need to put politics aside. We need to put egos aside. We sit down and mediate this issue. I'm happy with what Kotu is doing, so that we don't go beyond day 10. Okay. Because it's fairly an easy issue here, because then we are just looking at the issue of what are the issues that SRC has raised. Okay. What about the issues of the allowances? And then I think, of course, as you can see, the nurses are also contradicting themselves by saying they are ready and willing to negotiate, but at the same time, when you ask whether they are ready to renegotiate the CBA, then they say no. I think there we also have an issue of blackmail from the side of the union, and I think they need to drop that, because we don't need to go to 100 days. Yes. We need to drop that blackmail and agree to go to the negotiating table and relook at anything that would be contentious, because that way then we will have a faster process. But again, the COG also need to show a lot of goodwill, and they need to remember when we had the doctor strike, we saw them hugging and laughing and smiling about the end of a 100-day strike that was there for the doctors. But what we were not doing, we were not crying with a man who had lost their wives in a labor ward because the doctors were not available to do an emergency CS. You know, we had a lot of pain from Kenyans. So that is what we need to prevent.
Bwana Joseph Ngwasi, there are discussions going on today. Have you been invited to any of them, now that you say you're ready to talk?
The government has not yet invited the union for any discussion.
What about the Council of Governors, Kotu? Are you involved in any of these discussions?
We are ready to attend any meeting if we are formally invited to end this stalemate.
So as it is, you've not been invited to any?
Not yet.
Yeah. So do you see a way forward if at all you do not get any invitation to the talks today? Do you see the talks having any consequence?
The government has an opportunity to engage the union and ventilate this matter and bring a conclusion. And we would like to make it clear that the way we came up with the recognition agreement, there was an agreement before that. That is the way this process was prescribed. Therefore, I don't see anywhere where the union has gone wrong in participating in these negotiations as they had been prescribed in the return to work formula.
Okay.
We are not contradicting ourselves in any way, because we have followed the process as it was laid down in that return to work formula. And going by that return to work formula, this CBA is supposed to have been concluded on or before 2nd of March 2017.
Okay. Finally, Benson Ambuni, how long do you see this strike continuing? Because now, from what I can hear and from what I can see, there's no proper mechanism of trying to resolve the crisis.
No, maybe Fred, it's also important to note that when Kotu is invited in a forum, the Kenya National Union of Nurses is an affiliate of Kotu. So there is no way Kotu will go to a meeting without a brief from the Nurses Union. I spent a good number of hours with the acting Secretary General of Kotu yesterday under direction of my acting General Secretary. I gave him a proper brief on what is going on, and if Kotu has been invited, we only look at it as that Kotu being our bigger father or our father in these issues will actually give its position about the nurses, and we know at one point the nurses will be invited. If the government intends to end this strike, the nurses will be invited, and I think that's where now the details will come in, whether there are issues that will be now talked about, whether there are what, now those things will come in the boardroom, but they don't go on national television and say we are going to do this when we are called. But we know officially up to today we have not been invited. But the Kotu going there, it is going there on the interest of nurses, not anything else, because the Nurses Union are an affiliate of Kotu. Whether it will take 100 days or not, we are very sure that this is a government that should be sympathizing with what is going on. The nurses also have shown before that they are willing to listen to the government, and we are ready to listen to the government, because it is not our joy that people die, because we have seen literally that when nurses are not in hospital, then the other cadres of health workers cease even to be relevant. So we are not chiding them by saying that, but the hospital have failed to work because the nurses are not there. We are looking for a way that this thing can be brought to an end very fast and in more proactive and an accommodative manner, so that people do not look at situations of nurses that they are only essential service providers when they go on strike. This one should be looked at from the time when they are presenting an issue for determination. These people should be seen as essential service providers, so that this issue is treated that way.
Thank you so much, Benson Ambuni, Chief Industrial Relations Officer, Kenya National Union of Nurses. And also need to thank Bwana Joseph Ngwasi, who's the chair of that National Union of Nurses. Also my analyst, John Kagusha, thank you so much, helping us understand what exactly is happening and the issues surrounding the nurses strike, which is on its 9th day today. Citizen Extra takes a short break, but we leave you with live pictures from both what's happening at the quarry in Pipeline, where a building collapsed yesterday, rescue and recovery operations going on. Also at the KICC, where the National Elections Conference convened by the IEBC will be officially launched today.